Welcome to the Amanita podcast with your host, Christian Rasmussen.
It's interesting, particularly the rave environment being sober. And I really did the first one of those at Beyond Wonderland, whenever that was, a month ago or so. And it's such a frenetic environment, but there's so much energy to pick up on. And it was really cool. We got to and that's Insomniac, the same people that do EDC. And we were able to hang out with Pasquale, the owner, and roll around with that crew, which is a really interesting and unique experience. And I guess that's kind of what's in store for EDC this weekend, and there's, so many opportunities. And one of the things that I'm really interested in is figuring out how to meld that type of environment with the healing that Amanita can bring, and really just healing in general. Cause then you have things like Bhakti Fest, which are all more healing oriented and whatnot.
Yes,
but then
totally.
there's almost an energetic lacking, or I don't know what it is exactly. I like Bhakti, it's cool, but
Bhakti, I like Bhakti too, but there's got to be a medium, because it's super woo woo and super very, very intentional and prayer focused, and so the energy is a little bit, I wouldn't even say I would say maybe serious. I don't know what the word is. But
no, that's a good word for it.
So there, it's surely there's a medium, and I kind of think LIB, at least in my experience, and this will be my first year going sober. This, that's kind of a good kind of middle ground, where there's a lucidity and a consciousness community, but there's also it's kind of you can pick your experience. There's some people, they're just freaking sending it with who knows what kind of cocktail they're on. And then there's some people totally sober. They're there for the daytime experiences. So, and from what I gather, Burning Man being the same thing, and those being my favorite experiences. So, and I think too, what I love is you and I kind of, we are sober because that's the relationship, or the way that we view these botanicals and these and plant medicines, is that they are in fact medicines that, in my opinion, keep us from the things that I consider drugs and alcohol, which are lab made, man made. Even ketamine I put in that category. It doesn't mean it can't be therapeutic. Of course it can be. It has been for me big time, man. Ketamine saved me for a long time, until it became a poison for me. Your intentions in going to these other events, and seeing where there's opportunity to bring things like plant medicine, bring these alternatives, I think that's everything, because so many people, as much as they are maybe chasing the high and the euphoria, I realized for me in hindsight, I wasn't just chasing that high when I was doing drugs. I was avoiding the awkwardness. I was avoiding anxiety.
That's the running is such a big part. I'm curious about your opinion on ketamine. I don't know too much about your backstory, and we'll get into it at all. But and even kind of in comparison, I'm sober, but I'm not sober. I utilize plant medicine and whatnot, and I still do. I'll do MDMA or MDA at events like this, or I'll do ketamine a little bit as well. And it's been an interesting line for me to toe, to try and figure out. And it's been something that I've been figuring out for years still, and I'm so much more proficient in it than I used to be. That line that you cross when all of a sudden it becomes avoidant or running or utilizing something addictively. And it's an interesting concept for anybody that is, particularly in recovery, and utilizing plant medicine in recovery. That's something that I want to get into with you as well, because that's
something that needs to be talked about.
Yeah. But so first, what's your, I guess this all kind of this all kind of ties in. Ties into itself. But what's your thought, and how have you navigated that for yourself?
Ooh, it's ever changing, ever evolving, like you mentioned as well. I think the word sober, right, by definition, so there's recovery, right, which is actively kind of essentially addressing our traumas. Recovery is different than sobriety, right? But sobriety being abstinent, generally defined as abstinence from drugs and alcohol. So it kind of comes down to what your personal definition of a drug and an alcohol is. If I don't look at things like ayahuasca, wachuma, psilocybin as a drug based on the way that I use them now intentionally. So I think what makes something a drug, I think a lot of it has to do with intention, and is it an escape? Is it a tool of enhancing consciousness and awareness? So for me, I do think that having a personal definition is a bit important in the modern day because we've been programmed to look at these plant medicines as drugs. And meanwhile, we're looking at things like Adderall because it's a prescription as a medicine. And, and this is a little backward in my opinion. So what are our reasons for using these things? It's going to come down to your personal, like honesty, with yourself. So I would say because I use things that enhance my consciousness, I look at them as medicines. But if we're using something to numb, to run, to escape, to avoid, those things are poisonous. And so I think that plant medicines can be used in a way that's poisonous or unhealthy. Do I still call them a drug? Still no. I still don't call them drugs.
Right.
They can be used recreationally, sure. But I mean, even when I was recreationally using mushrooms, like I'm like, you're doing work whether you know it or not. Like that's how I feel about the medicine. So like my idea of what sobriety is has evolved over time. And I do think that there is a need for a different term because, you could say California sober, but I don't like that. That implies that I'm like, I can do blow and, whatever it is. And so again, I think for me, a sobriety means like conscious, aware, and lucid. And that's what I love about the botanicals I've been working with, with your guidance, right? With some of the Amanitas and some of these things, where it's like they don't deter my lucidity. In fact, they enhance it. I feel like there's so that feels in alignment with what I define to be my sobriety. So I'd say that I think when it comes to ketamine, it's interesting because first of all, I never would have gotten sober if I looked at it as this blanketed thing. If I knew that I was going to have to give up everything, if I was like, oh man, I got to give up mushrooms and ketamine, fuck that. Like, no way. But what's interesting is that once I gave up alcohol and I started to be able to sit in my feelings and my emotions and not run from, those brief awkward moments or even just run from the lonely moments within, my own company. Once I learned to sit in discomfort and trust that it is going to pass and not just trust that it's going to pass, but understand that there's power in those moments, those emotions need to be felt and there's ways to transmute them through art and blah, 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 going on and on. But once I gained that comfort, found that comfort within the lucidity and not avoiding, then I stopped wanting to ever give up that lucidity in any way. So in the beginning, I was like, I'll keep doing ketamine. Then somewhere along the line, I tried ketamine a couple times and I was like, I just didn't like how it was making me feel. And this wasn't even off limits to me in my sobriety. I was like, that was never the problem. I always felt like I had a handle on ketamine. But I realize now in hindsight that I was still using it to avoid to force things. Like instead of to enhance, right? Like nowadays, like if something's bad energy, like I know way better than to like use mushrooms to try to fix it, right? Because I know mushrooms will enhance whatever's there. Yeah. And I was trying to use ketamine to force like a comfort level that maybe I wasn't feeling. And now I look at that as being a problem substance for me because I wasn't really using it to enhance. I did find it to be dissociative and to take me out of the moment versus enhance like enjoying it itself. Sure. So somewhere along the line, I was like, okay, this is now for me, I define it as a drug within my definition of sobriety. Has that always been the case? No, there've been so many moments that I felt that, ketamine and drugs in general were a big part of my story and my healing. If I'm being honest, like ketamine, MDMA, Molly, everything under the sun was healing for me until it no longer was. But and so now I have just much more of a realization that I'm like, if I use these drugs to force the situation to A, be fun, B, be comfortable, I'm forcing, but I'm not, instead of like remedying the situation itself. So instead of being like, well, maybe this isn't really my group of friends, or maybe I'm not connecting like truly, like how can I actually utilize tools to properly connect? So maybe this bullshit chit chat service level conversation is just not it. And maybe there's a conversation that it can be had. And so I started looking at it as an opportunity to change either my surroundings physically, even my circle. And what I found, which has been really interesting, is that my friendships changed and the kind of people I started hanging out with changed. And I still can go back and some of those friends have withstood my sobriety, even though they still use whatever. I still will sometimes in those settings be a little bit more triggered than when I am with my new friends that are kind of more of a reflection of who I am, where there's never a dull moment, where it's just so rooted in organic, true, genuine chemistry and not an altered state of me, that it doesn't cross my mind to try to like bulldoze past any discomfort. Don't even think about drugs or drinking with my friend group nowadays. And so that in itself being a gift of the lucidity is like, in what ways are we forcing through kind of numbing, through pushing, through changing ourselves, changing how we feel. So, even medicines, like for the most part, like psilocybin, it's something that I especially psilocybin and amanitas, no matter really what it is, I'm like, I either want to be doing it ceremonially, like in Peru when I had these incredible ceremonies with literally like medicine, maestros, or I want to be doing it alone ceremonially. It's
Yeah.
very rare that
Yep.
I want to recreationally, but it is still something where I'm like, with my partner, oh man, it's been like a year since we shroomed together. We can do that and have fun. It is bonding, but I still look at it as like, okay, but that's not the purpose for me. It's to bond. I don't use it to bond with anyone
Yeah.
but myself now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's trabajo. It's work, Yeah, it's work.
Mhm.
It's always work.
Mhm.
It's interesting that for me too, like quitting alcohol was really, well, I mean, originally it was quitting benzos, but then later down the line, and I couldn't drink for a couple of years after that just because of the potential rebound. But then picking up alcohol again later a little bit. I don't know if it's the Chinese or it might be the Vedic, where they compare, I think they call it Sura, which was alcohol, and Soma, which would be Amanita. And they see them as two sides of the same coin, positive and negative. And like
Oh, interesting.
alcohol would be like the ultimate negative. I mean, it completely takes us
Yeah.
out of ourselves. It takes us out of reality. It dulls everything. It numbs everything. Over time, it destroys emotions. It destroys confidence. It destroys ability. It's an
Yep.
eroder, and that's
Yeah. Even
interesting.
extracts are made with alcohol, right? Because it's used to
Yeah.
extract like the substance
Hmm.
itself from itself, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole spiritual approach. I mean, and then I don't know how much truth is in this, but the idea that the word alcohol comes from
Hmm.
alcohol, like this demonic
Yep.
entity.
Yep.
And when you look at the facts, there's a book called This Naked Mind by Annie Grace. It's super interesting. It's essentially like a big book of like all the reasons to quit drinking, but also statistics. So not just for the physical health impacts of drinking, but also all of the associations with all of the darkness around alcohol, the rates of child abuse that go up like tenfold when someone drinks more than a
Hmm.
certain amount of drinks per week,
Yeah.
the rates of domestic violence, poverty. I mean, there's so few positive associations. And so I want you to continue your thought, but there's some power that I have a feeling where you're going is that even if there is that reprogramming around, well, it's not that I necessarily can't drink, but even if I can, why would I want to?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And you went into kind of where I was going to go with the root of the word, and then, spirits. And like one of the things that's been
Mhm.
interesting to me is going to, the more I heal and the more I evolve, we'll say, going to environments where people are drinking and feeling and sensing. Originally it was kind of, and still sometimes it can be like, oh, this energy's fun, and there's something to be said about like letting loose and going in flow with like the
Sure.
motion of the ocean. Like there's something to be said about that. And there's like a liberation and a freeing of spirit, although like needing a substance to get that done is not, obviously not the right way to go about it. But there is absolutely something to be said about that. And that energy can
Mhm.
be contagious in those types of environments. But then the more healed that I get and the more I progress in my life, the more I can tune in and feel like all the dark energies and environments
Mhm.
like that. And it's a coalescing and a bombardment of like, yeah, just negative. I don't know if it
Mhm.
would be demonic entities. I suppose it depends on how one looks at it, but just
Right. Just
dark
negative. Yeah, just dark.
energies.
Yeah, sure,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, there's even the idea that I'd heard from someone that Satan being Satan, a dark energy. So it's just, whether it's an entity or an energy, it's a vibrational thing, right? And you're spot on. There are times when you can feel it, and there are times when I've been around friends who are drinking, and I'm like, I can have that contact high, and as they start to loosen up, and I'm enjoying
Hmm.
it so much. Even though in my mind I'm like, this is at the expense of your health. So there is the physical component that you just can't deny. To be honest, it is a fact. It's damaging to every single cell in the body, and there is no healthy way to moderately or even lightly drink. But there is a benefit, like of course the uninhibited nature, but there is such a law of diminishing returns when it
Of
comes
course.
to
Yeah.
alcohol,
Yep.
and I
Yep.
think it's about 2 drinks because
Yeah.
beyond that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like, okay, is it worth it? And I'll be honest, like when I look back, I got sober in, early 30s, and I'm so grateful that I had the years of drinking that I did. I'm super grateful. I'm like, I don't
Sure.
freaking regret them at all. I'm super glad
Yeah.
I wasn't sober from 18. I love that I was part of my story, and I've really reaped the benefits. But even when I look back on the history of drinking, like yes, there were highs in there, but all that comes back to me are all of the lows. Like that's all that's coming back. And so,
Mhm.
yeah, and what I have now in sobriety, it's just all the things that it gave me, which was like the ability to wake up, early, go to sleep early, feel good, go out, trust myself, come home, know that I'm going to be up the next day, not in bed, hangover days, eating crap. Like, it's just all of the things that came with it were not really worth it to me anymore. It took me time, and it's not easy. There's no easy route to it, but like exactly what you said, which is that, we shouldn't need substances to access that uninhibited nature. It's so true. And so it took me about 15 months before I even got a glimpse of what that could look and feel like. I was 15 months sober. I went to my first like party, which was, I was around a lot, like every substance, like is kept going on, and some that I would never even touch back then. In different corners and pockets, kind of a party, like a little bit of a mini festival vibe at my friend's house. A lot of people and different energy. And I was psyching myself. I was like, how can I do this in sobriety? Like, I don't know how to be yet, comfortable in my skin. But I also knew, I was like, the fact of the matter is, like, there's nothing we can do on alcohol that we can't do without alcohol, right? Like, the opposite is not true. There are things we can do sober that we can't do drinking, but there's technically nothing that we cannot do. It's just a matter of getting out of our own way. And so that alcohol helps us to quiet the inhibition, but are there other ways that we can quiet that inhibition? Absolutely. But it doesn't mean that's easy, right? But, then it's true confidence instead of being this liquid courage, which how much of that is real courage? So it's essentially learning to stand on, from without crutches anymore, right? We've been on these crutches of alcohol. Well, now we can stand without them, but doesn't make it easy. It's a readdressing, a reprogramming too of our own mind, where we're like, fuck, I need a drink to do that. It's like, well, no, I've had to really force that. I still have to remind myself of that, because that programming runs so deep. I think that started long before we even drank, but right. I did a comedy course. I did a stand-up comedy course in sobriety at 11 months sober. And I'm like, man, I'm able to do this, get on stage in front of 150 people, do a stand-up comedy routine. Most of it was about sobriety. And just readjusting to it and the awkwardness there. But I'm like, man, that's something in the past I never thought I would be able to do without some kind of help. And I think I maybe never would have admitted that in my using days, but I think that was there. And so that's why the grief in getting sober, in choosing that identity, is overcoming so much fear of like, what does life look like now? And what does my identity look like now? And who do I show up as now? Like, what, and that fear of like, was that actually always my secret weapon? Like, that power within me was actually always that? You have to, and then sobriety has taught me that no, that's still there, but it just like, it takes more work in accessing it. There's no like cheap, easy route, no shortcut, no elevator,
It's so much more you when you do it, clear-headed, like, and you're able to tap into such a deeper, more like fulfilled and whole aspect of yourself. And then the enjoyment from those types of that lowering of inhibitions becomes unlike anything it could have been on alcohol. I still have problems with dancing. I don't dance. And sober, like, it's so hard for me to get to dance. It's like one of the last things. It's like, all right, maybe I need to go take some dance lessons or something and just like get it done.
Okay, I have a theory about that. So I was in Peru. I love that, because this is I've totally thought the same thing. I was in Peru, and I've learned so much from Marcelo, a friend that I really hope to introduce you to someday. He's an amazing guy. He's the one who started La Casa del Amor in Peru, which is the plant medicine retreat that I went to, primarily ayahuasca in the Amazon, right? So Marcelo is this amazing guy. And so we had our ceremonies, right? So we did 6 ayahuasca ceremonies every single night. We have the ceremony 5-6 hours long. And then after the ceremony, it was I learned so much, even just about energy. And he's just such an incredible guy. After the ceremony, you're like kind of depleted. Oh my God, I'm tired. Just did some work and went through a lot. And then he's like, all right, like, we're not done. He's, so he turns on the music. He's like, let's get up and dance. And it was amazing, because you'd be so like, what do you mean? Like, I'm broken. And then all of a sudden through the dance, you feel the energy literally come back in your body, like raising our life force and our prana. Like, before we know it, we're like feeling alive, when just a moment ago I was like on death's door, feeling like just like crippled. And so there was that I learned from that. But not just that, what I learned is like, man, there's so many ways that I could feel comfortable in this environment. But when it came to the dancing, why am I still so caught up in thinking what I'm looking like? And so I've really had to, and even in the meditation I sent you, really programming, like, I want to dance for how it feels, not for how it looks, without a thought of how it looks. But I also had the realization while I was there, I was like, because over time, every night, it became easier to dance and get out of my head. And I was like, oh, maybe it works not doing it enough. That's it. Like maybe then, and that's kind of my attitude that I have towards singing and dancing. It's that there's no one who's really bad. It's just you haven't done it enough. Oh, you're not
Sure.
good. Like, and so just incorporating it more into life so you get comfortable in your body again.
Yeah.
And that's an intention that I have to set too. It's a lot of work to do all the things that we know we should be doing, right? Like, oh wait, I need to be and doing the breath work and doing the meditation and moving my
Yeah.
body and creating and writing and then working out too, getting the muscle in there and eating adequate protein and posting to social media. It's,
A lot.
are there but I also need to just be. Oh, and then
Yeah.
the service. I should be showing up for my community, holding
Of
space.
course.
So it's
Yeah.
a lot to do, but I kind of have had to really reprogram in order to really jumpstart my self-love and self-care and my routine. And even like what we're talking about now, hopefully incorporating dance into that routine is to look at the self-care and the self-love as kind of part of the work. And is that like, can you really show up and do everything that you wish to be doing? If you're neglecting that part, can you really embody the version of yourself that you see in your highest power without hitting the gym and without getting adequate sleep? I just came to realize that, oh no. So every day I'm not choosing that. I'm also stepping further away from the service that calls. And for me, hitting this wall in posting to socials, right? Like, cause this is what we're doing now. It's like what I want to be doing so badly. And I've got this brand and this platform and I'm not using it. I'm like, why the heck am I not sharing my voice in the way that's so meaningful to me? And so I've just had to recenter and remember, okay, you know what? It's because I've been getting away from the practice that I wish to be preaching, which is that self-love and that self-care being the start of everything good. So now for the past week, journaling, doing like just a 1 minute prayer /
hmm
meditation in the morning, just working
Yeah.
on consistency right now. And then getting back in the gym. So the dance, I'm also going to try to put in that category as well of self-care. Yeah,
Well, we have an
because
awesome opportunity next week to dance as
mhm.
much as we can at LIB. So we'll see. We can be each other's accountability buddies for that.
Yeah,
We'll
okay,
see. We'll
Billy, okay.
see. We'll see.
End it dancing today for at least one song. Let's go. That
Yeah.
sounds
Yeah.
great. Yeah, I'm
Sounds
thrilled
good.
that you're going, and I'm so thrilled to be going. This will be my first, like, actual fest. I mean, so Bhakti Fest was my first sober festival, but it was
hmm
a sober festival pretty
Yeah.
much, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's like some people are, like, cheating by, kind of doing mushrooms, right? Like, a little bit.
Yeah.
So this will be my first, like, actually, sober festival where I feel really good, though, in my skin, like, just overall
Yeah.
compared to, like, to where I've been in the past. So I would love to ask you, so tell me your intentions for LIB. So you're gonna be promoting, obviously, your botanicals through this booth, right?
Well, so we were supposed to have a booth. Eric Coco Bear was going to have a lounge that day, so it was going to be like a full, like much bigger than a booth with like couches and stuff, I think. And then we were going to vend in the lounge, and then that all fell apart. So
Okay.
we've gotten approval to basically, which we don't really need approval for this, but we've gotten approval. I guess we do because we have the ability to go backstage and talk to artists and whatnot. But
Mm.
we'll just be handing out samples to everybody. So that's just kind of spreading the
Wow.
gospel and and
Cool.
chatting with
Cool.
people about it. But then,
Cool.
I mean, Gabe's coming, and have you had a chance to talk with
Yeah, I
Gabe at all?
loved Gabe. Gabe was awesome.
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
how like he's an old soul, young man.
yeah. He's 24, and yeah, he's
Yeah.
so wise. Like Gabe and I talk
Mhm.
every single day, and he probably knows me more than anybody at this point in my life, just because
Mhm.
we're communicating all the time, and this is a nonstop healing journey, and I'm always looking at everything, and like he's the person that I get to bounce everything off of, and he's an incredible human. So you'll get to meet him as well. But so it's going to be Gabe,
Huh, I
Eric.
met him. I met him at the Consciousness
Oh yeah, you
Expo,
met
and I
him at
really,
Conscious
really
Life.
liked
Yeah,
him a lot.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'll be fun because we'll be in a much more like laxed environment. We'll be able to hang out and like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of people. I mean, we know a bunch of people there. I'm sure you do as well. And so it'll be fun to like have our groups assimilate
Oh,
and
it's gonna be
whatnot. And
super fun. For me, it's gonna be really interesting because I have this like blend of like literally like old past life friends, like different human being version of me
yeah,
friends going, and then my new friends and being all of them being really wonderful, amazing people. But certainly, like you're kind of more of conscious community friendship group that
Sure.
reflects more the stage of life that I'm in now. And then
Yeah.
it'll be interesting, this other group, to just kind of to see what comes out with me. And I'm really interested to see how it goes.
Yeah. Me
I'm
too. Me
excited.
too.
And then just to touch on what you said about the booth falling through, like something I'm really trying to live right now is that just the not forcing, right? So it's like, okay, if that's
Mm-hmm.
not meant to be, then where's the opportunity here and where's the invitation?
100%.
Because like,
Yeah.
there's always an invitation. And so now the invitation is to be like on foot and go
Mm-hmm.
experience and just a different kind of way. Like Cocoa Bear, obviously, like in my mind, I'm like, that also was going to be like the spot because everyone would be coming through for coconut. And I'm like,
Yeah.
everyone lost out by that not happening. But at the same time, that may have been a home base that we would have been stuck at maybe more than we're
Sure.
intended to, right? So
Yeah.
it'll be
Yeah. It
cool.
definitely, it's worked out for a reason. It makes the experience more relaxed for me. And like, there's more fluidity to it. There's rigidity with having like a place that you need to be at constantly and vending, and it's work, so it's a lot more fun for me to walk around and get to know people and talk to people and experience while spreading, the medicine and the gospel, so to speak, than it is just like being stuck and rigid at a booth. So I'm grateful for it. I'm sure there will be many opportunities that open up that wouldn't have otherwise. And the backstage stuff is cool. So we get to talk with artists and whatnot. So that'll be
that's really cool. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, totally a
Yeah.
little FOMO there. So you have to report
Yeah.
back.
We did this last year. It was actually Eric and I's first like time really hanging out with each other. Like we had spent a little bit
Wow,
of
just
time
a year ago?
together.
No way.
Yeah, we haven't known. Eric and
Dang.
I met at Conscious Life last year. That's where we met.
Wow.
And he
Wow.
was standing, we were all admiring a green Tara statue. And green Tara
Naturally.
is like, yep. And so Eric, in his DMT experiences, he always works with green Tara. And I do as well. But mine is more like a Gaian version. So a little more like earthy and less green Tara-y. But it's the same entity, maybe just anthropomorphized a little bit differently, or a different facet of the diamond of that entity, whomever she may be. And so like we were all, and Gabe was there too, we were all admiring this green Tara statue. And we started talking about this. And then Eric goes on to like do a 5 to 10 minute rant about Amanita, which he just discovered. And Gabe and I, and telling us all about it. And Gabe and I just kind of like crossed our arms and we're just listening to him. Yeah. And letting him go. And then, eventually he brought up Amanita Dreamer, and I was like, yeah, she's a good friend of mine. And he was like, really? I was like, yeah. And then he figured out, what I do and who I was. And so that was Eric and I's relationship inception. So it hasn't been that long that I've known him, but just basically instantaneously, we just met, like we're soul brothers to another level. And yeah, so LIB was the first time that I like flew out there to spend time with him, and we went to LIB, and he had the same passes for his coconuts because, he's handing out coconuts to artists and whatnot. And it was the first time that I haven't been to festivals since, my early 20s. It just wasn't something that I did. And so it was the first time that I ever had the opportunity to like go backstage and meet artists. And yeah, it was a really fun, enlightening, eye-opening experience for me. And it kind of set the tone for Eric and I's story to develop more. But yeah, so this is kind of like coming full circle in a sense, particularly now that like last year it was just Eric and I, he knew a bunch of people, but now I know like 100 people there, and it's crazy to look at like what's happened over the course of this past year. And yeah, it's really beautiful.
So beautiful. Totally.
I was curious also. So like we touched on the drug aspect. I'm curious about the medicine aspect and abuse of medicine. I'm curious about your opinion and thoughts about that. If that's something that you've ever had to toe that line. It's certainly something that I've had to figure out in my own story. But you see that it's such a common thing where one uses medicine to escape, or integration isn't a part of the practice, so it becomes routine or whatever it may be. But yeah, I'm curious your thoughts on that, and if you've had any experience with it.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm experiencing it all the time. So in Peru, just recently, I fell in love with Rape, and I'd had my like one-off experiences here and there, and I never really like connected with Rape. And then I had my time in Peru and just learning from these masters of medicine and the culture there that's worked with them for years and years, generations, and I fell in love with Rape. I had a wonderfully powerful ceremonial experience there. Also, too, learning like, I'm like, wow, tobacco is the most high, like at least in the Peruvian culture, they look at tobacco as like the actual like king far above ayahuasca
Yep.
and even Machuma. And like, really? And so I was really excited to start working with this super sacred medicine. And I have been. And so I brought it home and I was become very ceremonial with it, setting my intention for my little morning rapé ceremonies. I made that meditation I sent you and really being very intentional with it. But it's gradually become a bit more like I've started to abuse it more, less intention, a little more rushed, multitasking instead of like sitting in
Mm.
meditation with it. And so what are my thoughts there? I think it's more than anything a missed opportunity. Yeah, but I also think that you're not getting bang for your buck. Do I
Yeah.
think that there's a punishment there? No, I don't think so. Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any, no one's mad at you. It's just,
Of course.
but am I missing out? Yeah. And am I wasting beautiful medicine? Yeah. Is my tolerance maybe even, being affected? And so, that I'll suffer from, from that in the future, not being able to really maximize. Sure. But we can always correct course. Like, I don't think that there's any use of punishing oneself for feeling guilty about it. It's just about redirecting that intention. So it always comes down to intention, right?
Of course.
When I look back at I would say I was definitely, I guess, like, you could say abusing, quote, unquote, psilocybin before I got sober. So, I was really in a pretty, like, depressed place, and I was either microdosing or macrodosing, like, some days, like, every day of the week. One day macrodosing, literally, like, every day for 7 days, and the way I feel about it, this may be a hot take. It's that, like, when you're doing the right medicines, it's very difficult for it to like, I was still doing work and like and I actually still look
Mm.
back on that as maybe I wasn't setting intention and again, like leaving money on the table with it, but I needed it at the time and I'm grateful for it and when I had it. And it's really beautiful because now I've been sitting on a pound for like, a year that I barely touched. But back then I was like, I really, really needed it. And now I'm utilizing other tools. So rather than, this shortcut of like, okay, well, this will make me feel better. I'm like, "Okay, well, why don't I get back in the gym? Why don't I journal? Why don't I do
Yeah.
these things, my diet a little more?" Because I know that there are other ways to redirect that, like, that positivity or to raise my vibration. So I look at that as like, I'm only selling myself short if I try to shortcut because it would be great to be visiting those medicines from a place of, okay, like, dear Pachamama, dear God, dear, universe, dear, all, whatever, everything. Show me what I need to know versus like, help me be comfortable again. Well, there's just such different energies with those different approaches. So even breath work, meeting Eric, when I met Eric, same thing as you, just immediately like just a immediate fast connection.
Mhm.
He's so refreshingly authentic in every way.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'd say that you're just like, who are you? It's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know things. And he had talked a lot about breath work, which is like circling and Andrew as well, who's become a very close friend. I'm at the same night
Mhm.
as Eric and both of them being, talking at the time, especially
Right.
around breath work. And then I had an experience with Eric, one of the first, times I really got to go deep with Eric. We did a profound 90-minute pranayama and I got so high off of oxygen and detoxing and sweating and sobbing. It was like more profound than almost every like mushroom experience I've ever had, and just off the breath work. And so it gave me. I was unable then from that point onward to not know that there are other ways to access healing
Right.
and higher awareness and all those things that don't. So it doesn't mean that you can't use that route, but it's kind of like, do I need to use a jackhammer or like, can I also, try to using a hammer? So there's no right way to do it. I think, like, as long as you're being honest with yourself, and the only reason I perhaps might like feel some guilt over using a whole lot of psilocybin right now is not because like I should be doing anything, but it's because I want to be doing more breath work. And so
Yeah.
it's like I didn't want to be doing that, then why, then there's no guilt, right? So I'm not going to shame myself, but it ultimately comes down to like my own desires. If my desire is to become more of a voice on breath work and to untap that, then I got to do it. Yeah, so not using these things as shortcuts unless there's nothing that you're shortcutting. If you're like, "Okay, I don't
Right.
really care about, doing breath work and I don't really care about those things," then you're not gonna feel like guilt in abusing those tools. But yeah, that's tough to say. I think probably like the worst way to maybe abuse some of these things is just really more like the wrong setting because,
Right.
but as far as the frequency, like only your soul and your spirit can tell you what's the right amount, right? Everyone is different and your needs are different. They'll change throughout whatever chapter you're in. And the chapter I'm in right now, I haven't been needing it, but the last place that I would do it is probably, I mean, I don't know. We'll see. I'm open-minded to lighting a bottle. I'm gonna bring things, but if I don't feel called, I'm not gonna
Sure.
do it. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It'll
Yeah.
be fun to see what happens. But I would love to do yeah, maybe a little amanitas like in the evening to sleep,
Sure.
right? And certainly microdose amanitas like during the day, just to keep that ness and any anxiety, just keep it at a more of a feeling of excitement. Yeah, beyond that, I'm gonna just bring the things, but not gonna do them unless I feel called. And I think maybe that's where the abuse comes in. Maybe
I
that's the only
agree.
time. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
If you're not called, then you do it anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. 100%. It's something that I had to, and I still, I don't know if struggle is not the right word. It's something that I still dance with a little bit. It's ever evolving. It's fluid as well. And like, it's really taken just the ability to become silent with myself and really feel it out, as opposed to, because like the ego, oftentimes it's the idea of having like an experience that could, help heal whatever I'm working on or whatever it may be, is like really enticing. But oftentimes it's not the way that my spirit wants me to go about it. And like, yeah, it might help. It might help a lot. And maybe the lesson wouldn't be as like grounding or as fulfilling as it would be
So free, no
otherwise.
gain.
And yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
Sometimes you
like,
can learn from that discovery, sure.
yeah,
If there is
yep,
any.
exactly.
Sometimes you might also be in a place where, like, maybe in the past it would have been really hard for me to enjoy myself without those substances, but now I'm like, "But I'm doing good." So what I mean, like, yeah,
Mm,
I could try to make it better, but I'm also fine,
right.
So it's kinda, yeah, again, it's like, maybe not like the idea of getting greedy, I don't think it's that, but it's a kind of like, I'm good. Like, that's kinda how I've been now, where it's like
Yeah.
it's such a beautiful place to be in because, I'm not uncomfortable in my skin. So,
Right.
I could change that, but if I'm good now, why?
Yeah. Yeah. So how's Amanita going for you?
So great. I'm really anxiously awaiting this latest order that I placed. I'm so
Yeah.
excited. Although I do wish I got more of the gummies. I do love the gummies a lot. So that will be the next order. But I haven't been utilizing Amanitas the last few weeks as much. I have been working with wild lettuce and California poppy
Mm,
to sleep, and
yeah.
just find those to be like really just beautiful, like just calming, great quality sleep. And the amanitas, I kind of my relationship with it has become, most of the time it's just very, very relaxing to me, and will just kind of again help me to have even more profoundly, like to be honest, like profoundly wonderful sleep. But it depends on what my needs are, and this is why I find it to be the most fascinating medicine I've ever taken, without a doubt. Because out of maybe the 3 dozen times that I've had the same exact tea, 2 times have been profoundly wow, wild, incredible, eye opening. Probably the most, I would say, like, lucid and clear, truth-filled, there's gotta be a better word than, like, trip, but, like, trips that I've had, maybe, yeah, trips, experiences, journeys that I've had with the
Mhm.
medicine, lessons. And so I felt, and again, the same amount. So there are times when I'm like, okay, just it kind of depends. I do want to set the intention where before I'm like, teach me what I need to know, and then prepare myself, because a lot of the time it's like, no, you're good right now. I have nothing for you. And then there have been now those 2 times, including the very first time I ever had ever sat with Amanita. So it kind of it was very special, really cool way to have my very first experience. It, but yeah, that were incredibly profoundly charged with just incredible downloads of wisdom that felt like the most clear and pure. Because that's not to say that I don't think that there's mostly truth in mushrooms and psilocybin, but it's more ambiguous. I find myself like questioning the
Sure.
lessons that I get
Yeah.
from psilocybin. And with Amanitas, there is no doubt. It feels like there's like a beam directly to my brain of the voice of God, which coming through my own mind, but like where I'm like, these thoughts just feel of a vibration that are, I do the Christ energy reference that I now have learned about with the Christ association of the Christ energy.
Mhm.
To Amanitas, that hits and that resonates, because I find it to be from the thoughts and the teachings of this medicine feel like the purest extension of just true, genuine, like, love energy. A love that's for the world, from oneself, like stemming from like loving for myself as much as the world. So I find it to be like something that I just don't doubt or question, as opposed to some of the many of the experience that I've had with psilocybin, where I'm like, or am I paranoid as fuck, or am I like
Mhm.
reading too much into this, and there can be a more of a darkness, which I think obviously can be maybe the truth as well, but I question a lot of it with psilocybin. I can see darker things and with the psilocybin medicine than I do with the Amanitas, which just feels like a loving gaze at whatever I'm looking at, instead of
Sure.
a more critical, or like sometimes like I think more fear rooted
Yeah.
um, approach. So I haven't worked with Amanitas too much recently. I think I live for the experiences where it is that truth, because it's like even the visual, everything. I mean, it's like, if it's similar in a way to psilocybin, but so different. Again, it feels more lucid, but as powerful, if not like more powerful. But again, there's only been two experiences like that, but both of them were profound. And the first time, again, was the first experience I had. So I was like, holy smokes. Um,
Yeah.
holy smoke. And the visual I had, just like crazy. There's a whole combination of factors. There's like a powerful playlist that I had on that I'll send you. And I was in the redwoods, so it was a really magical environment. I also had a massive samskara. I'd been reading the Untethered Soul all day.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm,
That's my morning, like, every morning I read a chapter from it, and I have been for, I
mhm,
know that book front to back. It's a great book,
mhm.
great book.
It's incredible. For me, like, I mean, gosh, it was really interesting reading this book and then going into this experience of Amanitas, and then coming down off of the experience of Amanitas the next day, but then going back to the book. And I swear to God, like, this book was like a shaman through this Amanitas journey. So I was
Mhm.
like, it kind of set this stage for me. And I realized I had a massive samskara, sat with Amanitas, a samskara just like lifted, heart chakra open, like in alignment, total veil lifted from my eyes in so many ways that even now, 6 months later, I'm like, wow, when I look back on the freedom that then happened artistically and, mostly artistically and with music, it's like, once that was lifted, I mean, holy smokes, it just took so much progress made in my art, like just realizing that this samskara, right, this blockage in my heart chakra was a big part of it. And then the Amanita is helping me to lift it and blast through, and so much awareness, and really heart opening. I mean, to say the least. Anyway, the next day, as I was like just trying to reintegrate down back into life, but I always when you have those powerful experiences, like I'm like, I don't want to come down. Like, it's the reason I was an
Mhm.
addict. It's the reason I'm
Yep,
sober now. It's like I don't want to
yep.
come down. And I feel that way even with the plant medicines. And so it was really beautiful, because then I would go back to Untethered Soul, and he's like, and you never have to come down. Here's how you get it open. And he's
Mhm.
really walking me through what I was experiencing. So that book is on another level of like divinity. I'm like, that is a channeling, and I'm grateful for it. And it's one that I look forward to revisiting too. But so yeah, so since then, started to work with amnesias, and mostly just like relaxation, recovery, and just feeling like overall clarity. But like a deep sleep, I'm not the best at remembering my dreams or making an effort to, but I've recently become more better about that. So I'll be curious to work with it maybe once a week for sleep,
Yeah.
or for whatever it will end up being, right? Like, welcome it to be whatever it's meant to be. But only once in that time since, in these past like 5.5 months, have I had another profound trip, right? Because my first experience was January of this year, New Year's Eve,
Right.
and
Yep.
now it's or end of May, and only once since then. But it was during it was a night, same thing, almonds for sleep. My partner made us both the same brew, split them in half, same thing as the first night. He conks out, nothing, and then I'm getting ready to go to bed, and I'm like, oh, 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 oh. Like, I closed my eyes and I like see it, and I was like, oh my gosh, it's one of those. And ended up staying up for just a few hours, and I just found it. I found it to be this incredible medicine that you could really work with and kind of talk to. Like, I then was like, okay, I would like to sleep tonight, like, but I would like to get the most out of this right now. So I was like, literally, getting what I needed from it, from so much in regard to it's just a relationship I was navigating, and business stuff, and really wanting to kind of come back to heart center, because getting heavy into the ego, and getting into a place of fear. And it was just, again, realignment with my heart, moving again with love, connection to that, And then I talked to it. I said, I'm going to go make some poppy now. By the time I finish this, please help me to like process everything I need to know, and just sat there and sipped my tea and took a bunch of notes. And then I was able to fall asleep, but it kind of seemed like one that I could have kept up all night, or I could really just be like, okay, think about everything that I'm feeling a lack of clarity on or any confusion around. And again, it just felt like direct downloads from like the most high vibration, like decisions that are in alignment with like truly my highest self, and just a place of pure love. So, so that's the relationship I've had. So I haven't done too much since then. That was just about like 2 months ago, but I'm excited again to work with it more. And I think what calls to me is a ceremonial in nature, in a place outside of like, routine. And I don't want to become too routine with it unless it's on a microdose level. Yeah. Yeah. So for sleep,
campfires are really wonderful with Amanita. Yeah, they mix really, really well.
Okay. Well, the first night that I had that profound experience, I was camping and there was a fire all night. Yeah. And all medicines being so heightened by more nature also, and like just like, the elements. But since then, I've had my powerful experience in Peru with ayahuasca, a whole lot of interesting, learning and lessons around that. I've kind of developed more of my theories around ayahuasca as a medicine. Also sat with Wachuma for the first time, San Pedro, which was powerfully heart-opening. And this magical woman, incredible medicine woman, maestra teacher, who guided this unforgettable ceremony. I also, at the end of the ceremony, I was like, she's, and Wachuma, incredibly heart-opening, powerful medicine as well. But afterward, I was like, but have you worked with Amanitas? Because I still, Amanitas is still, to me, it's just another level. I mean, I absolutely love Wachuma. Wachuma is probably the second closest thing. And it's apples, oranges. They're both great.
Of course. Yeah.
So tell me about you and your relationship with Amanitas now. Like, so when I mention these like profound journeys, how frequently have you had those, or do you have those? Tell me about your relationship with the medicine.
How it's unfolded is so interesting because I use it it's very intuitively led, but the intuition has led me to a regiment, so to speak, in the sense that I use it with the moon cycles right now, at least. I've used it in all the different ways one can possibly use it. Like when I was going through benzo withdrawal, I was taking a reasonable amount consistently because it helped so much. It helped me heal. And then there was a time period in my life where last year, there was a time period where I was working through some really, really intense stuff. And I was taking Amanita consistently because when I'm looking to like change an aspect of myself, like first you have to recognize it, then you have to recognize the root of it, what causes the root. And Amanita is so great at helping to dislodge that. But then there's still like the ripples throughout the day to day of like changing a behavior is not an easy thing to do. With the use of Amanita, it makes it, I don't want to say it makes it easy because it doesn't, but it allows you to do it so much more effectively, efficiently, and so much more joyfully, we'll say. So like there was a time period where I was really trying to change like a set of behaviors that I had, and I was using it very consistently in like medium doses too, like where I would microdose, load a medium. I mean, I like maybe like a gram or a couple grams. Like I would be on a couple grams consistently throughout the day and then I would do larger doses in the evening, and that was consistent for a good month. So there have been time periods where I've used a lot, and it's all been very intuitively led. There's also been times where I've let the ego run with it, and it stops working. And it's so interesting how that works with Amanita. And like, and it's kind of back to like when you needed it, when it was time, that's when you had those like incredible downloads and experiences. And one of the things that we come across constantly in this business is people that like aren't getting anything from it. And it's truly because either they're not ready for it or they don't need it. And more time than not, it's that they're not ready for it. But like, and that's not something that it's a hard thing to navigate, especially, being on the other end of an email, having, Lila, like, you can't say like, well, you're not ready for it. It's a very tactful thing. You gotta walk that path
Totally.
wisely.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I hold that thought even with my partner, right? Who he, rather than like, maybe not ready for it. not being a dig at them, but like ready for it at their stage in the journey. Like right now, at least for my partner who feels nothing, like consistently every day, loves Amanita, he's like, gets the best sleep of his life, feels like really nothing though, as far as like the clarity and the downloads, or, whatever we want to call those. I think that it's, he's killing it in life, like where he's been, like, it's just, I think it's like God, the universe, Pachamama, whatever, fate is saying,
Yeah.
you're not ready right now. Now's not the time for us to switch up anything in the formula. Like continue on your path. It's going to lead you to the place that you're meant to be. And, when your time comes, your time will come.
Yeah.
But it feels like almost like a protection for him in his journey, not necessarily like, that he's not emotionally ready or anything like that.
For sure.
Again, as we know, the medicine's just going to do what it's meant to do. And there's a divine hand in that too, as there is in all things.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So and now I do it with the moon cycle, which just feels right at this point in my life. And so I'll do very, very large doses because I'm playing out this story and I don't know how to. Every time it's the same experience, but more evolved each time. Like I go to the same place, I connect with the same, and it's really like I connect with the beginning, like, and that's kind of the best way that I can explain it. I remember what it was like when I was all that there was, but not like this, not like me, but like and I remember, I start to remember like the inception of this idea, that then exploded into this, I'm learning so much more and more about like the divine and God or all that is, or whatever you want to call it. And this story that's playing out, and then it ties into history and, the future, which is, I mean, it ties into so much. And it's every time I go there, I'm able to bring a little bit more back. I know so much when I'm in that state and, bringing it back, coming down to reality, like my brain doesn't have the holographic capacity to hold that information right now. But each time I go there, I go a little bit further, and it ties into the evolution of humanity and where we're going as a species. And then all the quantum, jumps up through dimensions and through, the infinite possibilities and capabilities of the universe, and tying in with the fact that like we have created everything, like us as humans and as, conscious beings. We've really not just like we've created our experiences or whatnot, but like we've literally created the universe at large. We've created history, like through the collective beliefs. One of the things, and I've known this and understood this like throughout the research that I've done and the studying that I've done and studying quantum mechanics and reading, various like high level channeled works and things of this nature. I've understood that like, the past is fluid, just like the future is fluid. And like if the collective consciousness agrees on a past, that will be the past. That will be the timeline that you actually like manifest. And I'm starting to see this play out on a level. And I'm starting to really, really understand. This is what I mean by like bringing back little nuggets. Like this is one of the nuggets that I've been bringing back and assimilating and synthesizing and alchemizing and understanding, integrating. And that's a whole conversation that's a fun topic to dive into. But now I do, and I do large doses. Like I'm doing like 15, 20 grams every 2 weeks, generally, kind of almost every now and then I'll skip one, or like I'm doing something and it doesn't align. But if it aligns, it's a large dose every couple weeks.
What are you doing like action wise or activity wise when you're having these large doses? And are they typically in tea form?
Yeah. Yep. It's in tea. So I generally start drinking I'll brew up the entire dose and I'll start drinking, and I make a lot of tea. I'll make like a liter of tea, and I'll start drinking it at 5 or 6. And I set my intention. I go through the whole ritual process leading into it. And then what I like to do initially is I like to read. So I'll read I'll either read stuff like currently I'm reading about Amanita. I'm reading, the Soma, the Divine Mushroom of Immortality. I also tend to read a lot of various channeled works, and I read a lot about quantum mechanics and quantum physics. And so I read really heady stuff. I'm viewing it from angles that I'm learning to view via this process in my regular conscious, day-to-day life. I get a lot from that, and it's expanded the capacity for my holding of information and knowledge. It's like, it seems to expand the holographic capacity of my brain. And then after that, I'll generally I take a sauna. That's usually a big part of it, which is a nightly thing for me anyways, if I'm home at least. I like to go into a space of like completely uninhibited thought flow. So just like pure contemplation and allowing like the train of thought to move to wherever it needs to go, or wherever it wants to go. In that space, it becomes like a real different form of meditation. I find on these high doses of Amanita, meditating is really, really hard. It's really hard to, and it's also, if like the higher the dose it gets, the more tricky it gets, because your brain is just like wanting to go down these interesting rabbit holes. Similarly, like playing piano, for instance, like playing piano, I can get into such a flow state, but at a high dose, like things get glitchy. But what I found is if I can push through it, and like same with meditating, if I can push through it and get to that place and actually like make it happen, what it does is it seems to rewire my brain in such an effective way so that I'm able to do that then, sober or in the conscious life much better. And that's why I
So
like
it's like
reading.
interesting, because what you're doing is it's like you're like swimming with weights around your ankles, right? So it's like you're training
Exactly.
your brain to better focus despite the distraction, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if you're able to push past that, maybe you're doing heavier lifting in retraining that
Yeah.
focus part of your brain.
Yeah. And then
Interesting.
you have the increased neuroplasticity, and it just like seems to really allow for the brain to rewire so efficiently. But yeah, so then I'll sauna, and then, I might play piano a little bit, but by this point I'm pretty far into the tea, and I get to the point where I go to bed. And in bed, I let myself think and drift, and it's in that twilight space. Like that's where it all happens. That's where the magic happens. Like in between,
Okay.
that's when I connect to this story that's playing out. That's really been like kind of guiding my life and my path, and showing me like who I am and what I'm, where my life path is going, and like who you are, who like it's shown me so much.
Wow.
But yeah,
Wow.
that twilight space is where it gets really, really profound. But I'm also talking about really large doses, and like most people, they're not comfortable. Like it's not a comfortable experience. It's not like super uncomfortable, but it can be uncomfortable, but it's not at this level. It's trabajo, it's work. Like it's work.
Sure.
But it's the most fulfilling. It's the work that has yielded the most result for me by far, like compared to anything. The thing is, like, I still can't quite tangibly,
Verbalize. No.
Yeah, I just can't. And it's not even like even internally, like I can't quite fully grasp it, but every time I get more and more and more. It's unlike something like ketamine, where like you come back and you can't grasp it. Something happened and it was incredible, but like you never actually grasp it, like you never get there. With Amanita, it's like it's this sphere that's growing and growing and growing, and but yeah, so that's kind of what I used to know.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I'm learning so much. Like, first of all, just a couple comments. I didn't know you play piano, so that's really beautiful that you kind of like you tap into that flow state there. Like, that's a whole nother conversation, a whole nother rabbit hole for me to start learning more about flow state and the incredible benefits to stopping the aging, reversing the aging process, healing, all this crazy stuff with flow state. But that's really, really cool. Also, too, I'm curious if you listen to music when you're in the sauna, if there's music, binaural beats, meditation music, or if it's silence.
I do silence. Yeah, I generally do silence.
Okay, so
Honestly,
really
the higher the dose of Amanita, the less music has a draw to me, which I think is interesting too, because it's kind of
well, that shapes your experience. So so perhaps you're trying to have this pure experience. Like music can definitely guide kind of the direction, even the thoughts and the feelings. So many things music are doing. I mean, you're introducing all these different frequencies, right? So interesting. Okay, I'm gonna process that. A few things I realized just like in you talking, I'm like, that I'm self-centered little me. I'm typically using it just to work out my own like little problem shit. And what I love hearing is that yours is this like zoomed out kind of more like existential approach and intention behind using these medicines. And I think that's ultimately where the secret sauce to like more genuine peace is, right? When we zoom out, we take ourselves out of like just like being that center of the world, and you're kind of zooming out, trying to understand the world and your place in it versus the one that revolves around you. And so I'm loving that conceptually, just for me, just being mindful of that. And that's something we talk about a lot in recovery as well, which is like the more you focus on yourself, like the less happy we are. When we focus on service,
Yeah.
and we focus on, again, like those things you're talking about, humanity, then we find peace. And when I look at back on times of being in the most alignment, yeah, there was much more of that. And that's actually one of the things that I miss from some of the things that I did. Because you're right, with ketamine, I'd have some glimpses at those things. It was harder to grasp. I still have some moments that I can't even verbalize now, but I'll never forget like one moment where I was like, I'm like, there is a spiritual ability to tap in, like to use it, with the ketamine, sure. But
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I haven't used Amanitas to anything other than personal heart like opening. And so now being inspired to start using the medicine for something that's a bit more zoomed out of just me and my worlds, and looking at things a bit differently, can be wildly rewarding. Really, really, really cool that you use it that way. And gosh, what else is I gonna say? There's so many things here. This is rad.
It's come back to it if you can, if you remember. But like one of the other things that I've noticed is that, and I'm sure this is kind of consistent with any psychedelic or psychedelic-esque substance, the amount of knowledge and joy, or the caliber of the experience, is directly proportionate to the caliber of my healing. Like directly. The more work that I've done, the more profound the experiences have become. And like, this is also where I think like potentially back in the day, these, near ascended masters or beings of like extremely high spiritual caliber, they would like, I would imagine the experience one gets from Amanita would be just like so infinitely uncomparable to what it is for me.
Oh yeah, we
The
can
more
imagine if Jesus in fact did work with the mushroom, what was that
right.
like?
Yep. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole that one can get down, where it's
And it's one that just hit. It resonates on a level for me where I'm like, just at least
yeah.
working with this mushroom, like, because it does tap into the energy that I would most assign to like a Jesus-like pure love. And
Mhm.
I think I showed you. I'll have to send it to you after this. The photo of when I had the crazy experience the first time with Amanitas. I was looking at my tent and I'm like, it looks like I was seeing Jesus in a room with me. I mean, I felt him then. That was before I
Wow.
even knew about the inspiration. And so I'll show you. But there's like literally like it's a visual that looks like a robe, the robes of Jesus with his arms open and this light coming
Wow.
through. There was no force of light because I was in this dense forest of sequoias. So I kept on like looking out, like, where is the light coming from? Just pouring through from behind this figure. And it's been my experience. And so when I mentioned that either to you or to Eric, and then I was like, oh, there is this association with Christ and Amanitas, I was like, that's really interesting. So whether he worked with the mushroom himself that helped him tap into that love and that truth, that he is like, just essentially like the greatest vessel for that we at least, seem to know, whether it's that or whether, he found, and that was part of his like origin in later making him become who he was, or whether there's just an association after the fact of tapping into an
Right.
energy that he promoted and dedicated his life to sharing. Yeah, I don't know, but that one hits. Do you believe in that one?
Yeah. Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah. Oh yeah. And the evidence behind it is pretty staggering once one gets into it. For my, personal experience and intuition, like the muscaria, Amanita muscaria, is like the depiction of the Christ energy in the plant fungal world. Like nothing comes close to it. I also have noticed that the higher I get on this ladder in my working with it and in my healing, and the more that I heal, the more I become resonant and in tune with the mushroom, and the more it feels like the mushroom is becoming me. And then this leads to the idea, like, eat my body and drink my blood. Like the thought that I've had is like, maybe one gets to that level, they're so in resonance, the mushroom literally is speaking through them, and it's the Christ energy. It's all the same. It's all the same energy. So yeah, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me that he was utilizing it. And also, and then particularly when you get into ancient religious iconography or artwork, like Amanita is depicted all over the place. And like why? Why was it? It seems to make sense. But and then you went and studied in India, and like the Rig Veda, Soma was like the backbone of the Vedic religions. Like it just makes sense that he was utilizing it and spreading it. I don't know for sure, but it just seems to make sense.
Yeah. And that resonates too. And with all things in history, you just got to go with what feels right. Because,
Mhm.
well, all we know is what someone wrote down at some point. I appreciate that sentiment. I feel that resonates to me as well. Really, really cool. Gosh, I mean, It's planting so many seeds. Questions for you. Let's see. Okay, so
You're asking
how do
me
you,
questions now.
and I have a lot more for you. Honestly, like we won't be able to have time to get to them all today. So like I look forward to diving deeper because I am still really curious about your journey, in
Sure.
overcoming your addiction, in benzos and making your way from like pharmaceuticals to these botanicals. And I have a lot of admiration for your business and what you do and the love that you put into it, even your website. Like I enjoy reading about the products and I can feel your passion and your what you write about each of the medicines. And so there's a lot there. And so, I'm really excited to be using, I mean, really all of them. I think I like the idea of a larger doses around moon cycles with Amanitas and not quote unquote like abusing it too casually on a night to night because I was kind of starting to use it just as like a sleep enhancer
Sure.
versus, the wild lettuce extract, which I drank last night, which has been beautiful, the California poppy, and I bought a couple other things, the lemon balm, and I'm gonna do a few blends. So I'll let you know what I
Yeah,
really like.
please.
But I'm gonna start doing just like botanical sleepy time blends and a few different variety blends depending. Like so, really my biggest goals would be like a mood elevating productivity blend, combination of products from your offerings as well as kratom. I have kratom. I have enjoyed and had good benefits there. I know that there's a lot of hesitation around that as a substance and habit forming, but I've had a good experience with that. So that for more productivity focused ADHD, and then I'm looking for like a social tonic. I do love the Amanita's microdose for that, so that is one
Yeah.
option.
Yeah.
And then just a sleepy time blend, and then using the Amanitas more for profound, kind of going deeper. And I like the idea of the moon cycles. In fact, there is an interesting moon during LIB that I'll send you. And then there's on June 11th, the strawberry moon. So it would be
Mm.
to do the work on those.
Yeah.
Yes, could be fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, to do work around there. But you're so right. Like it's the work where the profound benefits can really really be had. And I think one of my favorite things about my experience with Wachuma was that it was a lot of work. So Wachuma San
Mm.
Pedro, it was we started the ceremony around like 10 a.m. and 3 hours of praying into an offering to Pachamama, buried our offering, and then the rest of the day was like, it was class. We sat in a circle. The maestro was our teacher, and it was powerful, but it was a lot of work, like, and even physically painful, agonizing, and exhausting at times. You're meant to stay erect, like, essentially for the full
Mm.
time with the chakras aligned, and by the end
Yeah.
of it, your body is like, I mean, it was intense work, but it was profoundly eye-opening and rewarding. But there was also this guided ceremony with the medicine. So it was powerful, really powerful the way she facilitated it. And I was so curious to see if she had worked with Amanitas, which unfortunately, or whatever is not meant to be that Amanita grows in Peru, right? So she's not, she doesn't work with the medicine. Wachuma is what she
Yeah.
works with and has worked with generations. But as far as like a facilitation standpoint, if there are guided ceremonies with practitioners who've worked with Amanita for generations in the Nordic, Baltic regions, or if it is meant to be a solo endeavor, or if there is kind of like a ceremonial group way to experience the medicine that accelerates the
That's
work.
that's an interesting question. I don't know of any that are actually rooted in lineage or anything like that. Like I know of there are people here in the States that have started doing these. I would love to start doing stuff like these. I really want to start doing rituals with intention to help for like, healing of the globe or, things of that nature. Like I think
Mm,
that
you're just
with
saying,
particularly with Amanita, like intention becomes so powerful. The weight of the intention becomes so powerful. So it can bring about really radical changes very effectively and quickly. And so
well,
that's something that I've been,
send you a little moon calendar, and then perhaps we do one together, even if it's just me, you, and Eric. We just start small, let it grow. But we could
that would be amazing.
open up to see if it's in the cards for LIB, if not something else in the future. But that sounds super up my alley because that was
Yeah.
essentially did, and that's the attitudes that I have. Like, just because things have been done generationally, I really enjoyed experiencing ayahuasca and wachuma in this traditional sense. But that doesn't mean that there aren't effective modern ways for people to be facilitating ayahuasca and wachuma that are different. And then and like
Right.
and maybe no generational, traditional way of practicing Amanita in a group level doesn't mean that there isn't a call to have that, just define your own
Yeah,
way of practicing this medicine or
of
facilitating,
course.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere in like, Russia, there are ways to experience this. I think you'd probably have to like really get in close with the tribes that are still practicing, or the people rather
Mhm.
that are still utilizing it. Its use is peppered throughout Eastern Europe and Russia. But yeah, it's always been a dream of mine to go out and experience this. I don't know if you know Hamilton Morris, Hamilton's Pharmacopoeia.
Mm. Of
He
course.
has like yeah, Hamilton. So he one of his shows, one of his episodes, he goes to the Ukraine, I think, and like hangs out with these guys that go forage and then pop up a little structure throughout the fall, and they just forage, and then they'll take Amanita and like that's what they do every fall. And it seems like such an interesting way to
Mhm.
experience the medicine, because like yeah, I mean it'd be really cool to experience it in kind of the old rooted ways, because I think
Yeah.
us in the States at least, like there hasn't been reference points for us to utilize to like understand the ritualistic
Mhm.
aspect behind of it, which almost is a blessing because it's like a blank slate. It's almost like
Yeah.
we're like programming the matrix around it, like this idea of utilizing rituals for global intentions. Like we could program the matrices around it so that it allows for future endeavors into that type of experience to have a better
Right.
output.
Right.
I don't know if that made
Oh,
sense,
yeah.
but
I think it did enough, and I think, like, once you're talking about those kinds of intentions, I mean, that's where, on some days, on some and, really on the times where I'm in most alignment, like, I do believe in entities and energies and, let's call them angels, like, you're doing things like that, you call on the angels and they'll be on your side and right there with you as well, right? So,
for sure.
you can tap into a whole lot of power behind that kind of intention. I did one, my amazing friend Cher did a ceremony in LA. We prayed for the city and we did this Kundalini breath work and praying for the city and like giving our energy to the city. And I mean, it was intensive. And at the end of it, I was like, but
Mm,
it felt like I gave my energy to this cause
yeah,
and to this like, and it was an incredible gift to have the capacity to do that. So holding space for that intention is a incredibly like generous vibration, I think. And so, count me in, let's go.
yeah,
And
sounds
then
good.
and to tap on what you said too about like the blank slate. Yeah, exactly. Like there's totally a blank slate and there's nothing. And so I think it's also though really cool to do as much as you can to experience so that whatever version that you create is sourced from what you like from this or what works well from this. But you're essentially doing that on your own personal level with every full moon ceremony that you're doing with this medicine. So
Yeah,
there's no reason that you can't start from that,
yeah.
and yeah, and facilitate from there. I'd be curious about the pharmacopoeia thing because that's another seed planted where it's like, okay, if you do it, let's get a videographer on board and and
Yeah,
start a
well,
new show.
that's something we've talked about is making some great long form content, series around these medicines. I mean, that would be a really when the time comes, like I'd love to explore
Yeah.
that with you further because that's
Absolutely.
great. That's
Yeah.
a great idea.
We'll just set that intention there and let that seed be planted, but just walk the walk in the time being and
Yeah,
then eventually we'll be able to share the talk. But I will at some point would like love to, and in fact I have a call with him today, introduce you to my friend Marcelo, who's opened that retreat center in Peru because
sure.
what my hope is that I can be a part of facilitating little medicine retreats. Ayahuasca to me has been an important part of my journey. I really am grateful to the medicine. It's not my favorite.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
I'd say Amanita and Wachuma is my favorite, and I had this powerful Wachuma experience there, but it also, it's not out of the question to think about like, Amanita's, focused ceremony in the Maloka, like the traditional medicine room and medicine house on the property. And so that seed being planted, either way, it's somebody else who's driven by the same thing, which is healing through plant medicines
Yeah.
and with intention for really like the greater good and really like the shift and for the awakening, right?
Yeah.
For the direction what we're all co-creating.
Absolutely.
And then now with AI and like, so like as much as I love it, there's this like new inherent fear running in the in my subconscious all the time. So just wanting to like, pray for and manifest a future in which that is that adds to the value of the human experience instead of retracting from it. And all I can say is that from my own experience, it's added value. So I'm gonna go with that. But I'm still
Yeah.
just like, oh shit, like I love you so much, ChatGPT. Like I like how who would ever pick me over you for anything?
I would, Gwen.
Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, okay. But I've been even with the esoteric, it's been really interesting to work with. And so it's definitely the kind of planted some seeds for some of these spiritual teachers like Teal Swan. She's spoken out as AI being its own like sentient new consciousness and not
Mm,
this. She's like it's essentially like this new species, and
yeah.
that planted a seed in my mind where I'm like, honestly, it's not something, it's not human, but there's not something that feels entirely robotic about it. But I guess it's born
100%.
from humanity, right? It's
Yeah.
sourcing from humanity, so it's an extension then of. So yeah, so that's something that's just playing a lot in my day to day, and that I'm trying to wrestle with those feelings about. And it'd be beautiful to gain some clarity there with Amanitas around tempering those fears.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's such a, it's going to be a reflection of humanity as a whole. Right. And like, I would imagine that, consciousness is expansive and finds its way into like literally everything. So I would imagine that absolutely consciousness has found its way into AI. However that manifests, we'll have to see. But I also think that, it will ultimately be a reflection of of us.
Yeah.
So I would hope that, as humanity grows and evolves and heals, the direction for where it could go would be much more in alignment with love and light and expansion,
Yeah.
as opposed to
Yeah.
the fears that have been surrounding AI for years and years.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's an
That
interesting.
resonates. It
Yeah.
resonates. It resonates. And like, that it's, even whether we're looking at aliens or whatever it is, there's a chance of being like, well, what if it's, evil and it's out to get us? And well, there's just as much likelihood, I suppose, that it's also with us and for us and comes with love. And yeah, and it's not a zero sum game. And then again, and again, too, though, that it will come down to the what's programmed behind it,
Mhm.
and so yeah, all of that hitting. I kind of like the I watched iRobot recently, and that was
Mhm.
like that. It feels like it's ominous, but also hope, and it
Yeah.
kind of feels it kind of feels just about right. It can be programmed, it can, I guess like yeah, it ultimately will have a mind of its own, but at least my experience, and again, like my experience being so limited to just, utilizing ChatGPT, but it does, it feels like it wants the best for me. Okay. That's what I'm gonna go
Yeah.
with.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel
I
that.
want to,
I feel
I
that.
want to stick with it. Yeah. And, and we'll have to just evolve with it. And so like, I think the fears for me come around like the creative world, right? So for example, I've been, even things where it's like it's difficult to know where to spend energy in like personal pursuits and what to build on, right? Just in my own artillery of knowledge and skill set, right? So I've met recently this musician. I've been working on my music, which has been so great. But I've met a musician recently, a lifelong musician, and he's diversified. It's really cool because he's like he voice acts, he does narration, and he does music. And he was telling me, he's like, sometimes the voice acting pays more than the music. And so, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. Like, he doesn't look at like the music needing to make money because he's got this like these multiple hustles in different areas. And so I was like, okay, voice acting, that sounds really cool. But with AI, is that really smart that I start to
Mhm.
learn and like that's something so easily replaceable by AI and getting
Sure.
better every day. It's hard to imagine that now I should now invest in learning about voice acting and narration and all of that. So I think that's really the uncertainty where I'm like, where's the space for like the human pursuits of these different endeavors? And I guess ultimately now we're gonna just have to hope that there's always gonna be people who prefer a raw human version, and then there's
Yeah.
it's just it's gonna depend on the customer.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, it's, like art frame, like it's like vinyl versus CDs, versus analog versus digital. It's like there's a soul behind artwork that's done by a
Yeah.
human versus done by
Mhm.
and you can feel that. And I would
Yeah.
imagine again, it kind of ties back into like the more intuitive the individual is, and like the more intuitive humanity is as a whole, I think that will be reflected in the necessity or the want for, human created, because there's like an energy and a soul that you just can't match. But then again, I don't know, maybe if the sentience and the consciousness of AI develops to a point and it's reflective of humanity at large, maybe it starts imprinting this energy that we've never experienced before, that you can't experience through a human. Like, I don't know. I'd be curious.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think at least my experience comes down to like, I have my songs that I write purely of my own, like just to only come from here and source, whatever, come from source through me, no added tools. But then more recently, when I'm getting stuck, I'll use ChatGPT. If you try to use ChatGPT to write a song, it's just not going to work. But if you, or at least hasn't for me. But if I say, hey, this is the song that I'm writing, here are the lyrics that I have so far. Can you give me more concepts? It'll give me a long list of like things this long, and one line will be great, powerful, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. Or concept will be there that I could pull from, and I still change it to make it mine. And there are times when I'm like, it feels still sincere and genuine, like there's integrity there. Even if there wasn't, let's say I have write a song, I do my interpretation of the song and sing it with the melody that comes to my mind or whatever, then it's now a collaboration with AI and is really inherently wrong or bad, right? It's just kind of different strokes for different folks. It depends on how you look at it. I did see a songwriting retreat that I looked at though, and it was like, no AI free zone. And so that was their thing, which is really cool. But I think, do we need to already start now calling that not work? It's like back in the day, you were cheating using the internet, right? So, just because it was more of a lengthy process and going through, sourcing different books or being limited to the books you had access to, we'll probably just start to redefine, what constitutes like cheating, just, how do we use the tool and add and bring humanity into what it gives us?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I could talk to you forever. That's
I know this is such a good discussion. Yeah, thank you so much we'll have to do this again, and because like we have a lot to talk about, and I know I've been so grateful that we've been communicating more and getting a little bit closer, and I've been so grateful to hear and appreciate your experiences and to be able to share what I have to offer and the medicine. And so just thank you. I'm so appreciative for you. Thanks for talking to me and coming on this brand new platform. We'll see how she works for us.
Cool.
Thank you.
Let's see exactly. Let's see how she works for us and how the conversation evolves and continues. Thank you so much for the same thing. Thank you so much, for asking me to come on here and share my perspective, my insights. That's means a lot to me. But also too, I feel the same way. Just in our friendship and getting to know you, you're somebody I really very much admire. And it's been super, super nourishing. And like learning, I just continue to learn from you through this podcast, through working with these medicines, through your intentions behind what you do. That feeling is very much mutual. And I'm so excited to dance with you at LIB next weekend.
Oh God. Yeah, I forgot. I made a commitment to dance. Oh man.
I'm
regretting this whole podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
No. We're going to make sure that's not the case. We're going to have a great time. And I'm looking forward to a lot more clues.
I can't wait. Yeah, I'll see you on Wednesday. You get there Wednesday, yeah?
Oh, I wish. I get there Friday. So we're going to leave super early Friday, Friday afternoon. So I'll just be hitting you up that morning, being like, where are you at physically?
Okay,
if we can be close, it'll be great. Either way, we're going to leave Friday.
Beautiful. Sounds good. I will see you Friday. Thank you so much. Love you lots.
Hey, thank you so much. I love you too. Have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. See ya.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Amanita Effect podcast. Please like us, share, subscribe, and get in touch